Hello, everyone, and happy International Women's Month. Welcome to our third Africa Investment Roundtable webinar. My name is Chinwe Egwim. I am the resident economist at Africa Investment Roundtable and the senior economist at FBN Quest, which is an arm of FBN Holdings. On behalf of the co-founders of AiR, Ms. Oteh and Ms. Sanni, I would like to welcome every attendee and special guest once again. Many thanks for joining us. For the third edition, the theme is Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a Post-COVID-19 World. The impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is not gender neutral, as it affects men and women differently. The pandemic amplifies and heightens all existing inequalities. So putting women and girls at the center of economies will fundamentally drive better and more sustainable development outcomes for all. For this third AiR webinar, we have two segments, and similar to the last editions, it will be interactive. So please complete our polling questions when they pop up during the conversation. I am super excited. This is a topic that is close to my heart, and I cannot wait to soak in all the wisdom nuggets that will be released today. But before we begin, I will hand over to one of our co-founders, Ms. Toyin Sanni. TFS, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chinwe. Thank you, Chinwe, for that great introduction. It's a pleasure to be here again this afternoon, and I want to thank everyone that is joining us. My job is to share with us what is going to be the run of play this afternoon. Today, the Africa Investment Roundtable will be presenting to you I'm afraid there is strong interference, and I would love to troubleshoot and find out where that is coming from, because it's going to affect you hearing me. I'm afraid it's coming from my end, and I don't know why. I hope that's the end of it. All right, thank you. Apologies for that. Once again, my role is to explain what we're going to be doing this afternoon. And today, we're going to have two segments or two conversations driven by my co-founder, Ms. Arunma Oteh, and me. Our two segments are going to be, the first one will be on women in leadership, a conversation around women in leadership, and the second one will be a conversation around the Sustainable Development Goals, specifically SDG 5 on gender equality. In the first part, Ms. Oteh and I will be having a conversation on women in leadership, drawing on our respective journeys and sharing insights on how we think this very important goal can be achieved, specifically in a COVID-19 world. And we're going to be drawing on what we have done that we think can be of value to our participants. We had hoped until this morning that Her Excellency Dr. Isatou Touray, the Vice President of the Gambia, will be joining us, but have now been advised that due to exigencies of duty, she will no longer be with us. She sends her best wishes and hopes to be with us on air sometime in the future. The second conversation, led by AIM and I, will be with the Deputy to the Secretary General of the United Nations, Madam Amina, Mohammed, which will then be followed by a Q&A with participants. About that time, we will also be unveiling the results of a poll, which we have been running for a couple of days now. Please, if you have not yet participated in that poll, go to the link on whatever platform you are joining us with from, and please participate in the poll. We're waiting to hear your results. On that note, I will like to direct my first question to my dear Arunma. Arunma, it's great to be with you again this afternoon. And I will just ask you straight out, what do you think of this year's International Women's Day theme, Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a Post-COVID-19 World? What are your hopes, or what are our hopes of achieving an equal world? And what will it take, especially from the perspective of public institutions? And you know, in asking you this question, I take note that you have spent most of your career and business life in major public institutions. Specifically, you have achieved significant success as a woman in leadership in both domestic, regional, and global scenes, as Vice President of the Africa Development Bank, as Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission Nigeria, as Vice President and Treasurer of the World Bank, and now as an academic scholar at the prestigious Said Business School of the University of Oxford. This has surely given you a broad exposure to public institutions across the globe. So please share with us how you think public institutions will advance our objective. Thank you. You're muted. You're muted. AIM, you're muted.
Thank you, Toyin. What a joy to partner with you on the Africa Investment Roundtable, and particularly on this edition where we want to showcase the important value that women bring to society, and particularly female leadership. The first part of your question was what I thought about the theme, Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a Post-COVID-19 World. Absolutely a timely theme. People who are participating will remember that in our first edition of the Africa Investment Roundtable, we talked about the global economic outlook as well as the outlook for Africa. And we agreed, including participants, that this crisis, COVID-19, has been unprecedented. I do believe we will get a handle on the health crisis with behavioral changes, with vaccines, with therapeutics. My greatest concern for our continent, Africa, is the long-term negative effects of the economic fallout, and particularly that urgent and massive work needs to be done by every African country. I do believe we need inclusive approaches in Africa, where everyone counts, where everyone is economically empowered, young and old, men and women. Women make up over 51% of Africa's population. So can you imagine, as a business, not using 50% of your resources? Can you imagine what it means if you're operating below all of the resources that you have? Indeed, McKinsey estimates that if we seek to close the gap in Africa in terms of gender issues, the base case scenario, we would add another $316 billion to Africa's GDP. And the full potential scenario, another $1 trillion to the GDP by 2025. This, of course, depends on how effective we are in doing this. But I do think, more importantly, we should have our best hands help us at this particular moment when there's so many challenges for us on the African continent. Everybody has seen all of the reports and the research on the spotlight that was placed on female leadership and their excellent handling of the COVID-19 crisis, whether globally or in Africa. There's also been a spotlight that many people on the front lines, in terms of health workers globally, 80% of the health workers have actually been female, whether it's caregiving, whatever areas. And so I think we should just continue to have inclusive approaches where we have a mindset that men and women bring important leadership attributes to the workplace. For women, some of them, as many of you know, are compassion, emotional intelligence, risk management, rigor, and the capacity to handle complexity. We need more of these attributes, and most of them are also present in men. So that's my first response, TFS, to your first question. The second part of that question is around, if I may summarize, what is the role of public institutions? And let me just focus on governments to make the point. Public institutions and governments must set the agenda. That is their role. And for me, the starting point is political will. The second is the policies. The third is being a role model. Let's take political will. I think that politics is key and that we must seek across Africa to have more women participate in politics. Most African countries, of course, already have women affairs ministries. They have a national gender policy. Some of the differences, in my opinion, are in terms of implementation. And my great example is Rwanda. Rwanda has written into its constitution that 30% minimum participation is what you should have of women in decision-making positions. They have the highest participation of women in parliament. For their lower parliament, it's 63.3%. This is highest participation globally. 54.84% of Rwandese ministers are female. Other countries are making significant progress. In Africa, after Rwanda, you've got South Africa, Namibia, and Mozambique in terms of female representation in parliament. Countries like Namibia, in terms of ministerial appointments, have risen in 1 year from 15% to 39% in terms of ministers. Tunisia from 6.9% to 29.2%. The second area I talked about was policy agenda. I talked about even the Rwandan government setting targets for female participation in decision-making in their constitution, pay equity, addressing issues of gender-based violence and sexual harassment. But role modeling is extremely important. It sends a signal to the private sector, to women, to society at large, that a country understands the importance and the value that women bring. It sends a signal about having a meritocracy, not a patriarchy. It impacts how women are treated in their home, and it helps everybody understand the value that women bring. Even policies by central banks have been critical in this agenda. If you take the Central Bank of Nigeria, from when I was the head of SEC till date, they have mandated that at least 30% of the composition of boards of commercial banks be women, and we've seen what that has done to the banking sector, and that's being emulated around the world. So it's political will, policy, role modeling. TFS. Maybe I should ask you my own question from the perspective of the private sector, where you've spent most of your career and business life, including 20 years in leadership, and now as an exemplary entrepreneur. What do you think the private sector should be doing to accelerate gender equality in leadership positions?
Thank you, Aim. I believe the private sector has a responsibility to effect critical changes, especially bearing in mind that it is much easier to make a change and to make an impact many times with less effort, so to speak, and without the hoops that the public sector needs to go through. So I think the private sector are the ones who actually ought to be the role models for the desired behavior for the public sector. Now, they can do the following: formulating and implementing a gender equality policy at all levels of staffing and management, and of course, boards. Extending this to their partners and even contractors, and working to ensure that these standards are adhered to. So not just you set the targets, but these targets should be monitored, these targets should be measured, and of course should be rewarded as they're accomplished. Now, I also think that even platforms like exchanges have a role to play by also putting these standards in listing requirements, for example, and rewarding those who meet these standards. I also think that internal gender networks have a role to play. So private sector entities should set up and encourage internal gender networks where members of where women within the organization can get the necessary coaching, mentoring, and support that they require to rise within the organization. I also think that these staff should be encouraged to participate in external networks. I am very active within the networks we have in Nigeria, the WIMBYs and the Women in Finance, NG. I think that employers have a responsibility to encourage and create an environment in which staff are sponsored, are encouraged to participate in these networks. I also think access to finance is of critical importance. Entrepreneurs, by the way, Sub-Saharan Africa has the largest proportion of entrepreneurs across the world, in excess of 40%, and these entrepreneurs have a common problem, which is that women have difficulty in accessing funding. The private sector can help with solutions that provide funding for female entrepreneurs. Of course, technology deployment, training, and creating a gender-friendly work environment where workers will be free of harassment and free of discrimination. And I would like to share the example of what we have done at Emerging Africa Capital. We signed up to the Gender Charter of the Africa CEO Forum, and as we have implemented this Gender Charter for almost 3 years now, we have been able to achieve 55% of our work staff are women, 44% of board positions across the group are occupied by women, 75% of the chairmen of our board are women, and 64% of management are women. So we regard ourselves now as the gender champion within our environment. And of course, we have also sponsored funding for female entrepreneurs and also established a gender diversity. We call it the Balanced Diversity Fund, which invests in stocks of companies that have met the set standards of gender diversification in board management and, of course, even in the general staffing. So we think there's a lot for private sector employers to do, and we all need to put our money where our mouths are. Thank you. Sorry, you're muted again.
It's for me amazing the areas you've showcased as to the role the private sector can play, also in policy, also in supporting female participation within their organizations, outside of the organizations. And you made a very important point around access to finance, given the weaknesses that we see in that area. Phenomenal. You're on mute. I would ask our head of production probably to try to see if she can keep us not on mute so that it doesn't slow the program. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're doing it to ourselves, actually. So I'm just going to stay unmuted. All right. So, I mean, I am personally inspired by your journey, by your career journey. I have mentioned the prestigious and important institutions you have worked at and the very high office you have held in these institutions. And I know that there are millions of young women, young men who want to rise to the top as well. And specifically for the young women, because we know that many times it takes thrice the effort for a woman to rise to the top as it takes for a man. And this is, after all, the International Women's Month. So, what can you share with us about your journey to the top? And what are the lessons that young people can learn from this journey? Thank you.
I think we need a whole day to talk about a 35-year career. So maybe what I'll do is just distill that journey and talk about some of the things that have guided me. So my starting point is really a strong early foundation. And I say strong early foundation because many of us participating today are parents, and therefore the impact that you play early on your children or those who you mentor are extremely important. My parents instilled values in me that live with me today, and my father, encouraged me and my siblings to take on the world. And so it was always easy for me to take care of new opportunities. Should I say I have a village? No, I think I should say I have a country, or maybe a continent or a world of mentors, sponsors, bosses who have believed in me, oftentimes before I believed in myself. They've supported me, they've encouraged me to take on new opportunities. Hard work, learning from a past experience. But maybe I should share some of the principles that my staff at the World Bank asked me to come up with to help them in their own journey. The first one is define success in a very personal way, and set goals that are aligned with your definition of success and monitor them rigorously, whether it's daily, monthly, annually, but also have an accountability partner. And my older sister, Ebichi Akinsoya, is my accountability partner. We have what we call our no meetings at the beginning of every year, so she can query me and I can query her about some of the things that we had committed to doing. The second is your values. They should be your daily guide. Some of mine are integrity, compassion, and empathy, and they've never failed me. You should take responsibility for your life. I think it was John Won who said, you should not let somebody else nobody else can do your push-ups. You have to do your push-ups yourself. Excellence has always been my mantra, trying to put in my best, investing in myself through voracious reading and a life of learning. A lot of very successful people read widely. Last month, I had the good fortune of interacting with a Dutch entrepreneur who said to me, very successful entrepreneur, he's built many businesses that have been listed, that have gone public, and he said that he reads 3 to 4 hours a day. And I said, I don't read 3 to 4 hours a day, so I've made it a point that I will add that to one of my goals. Be courageous. Step out of your comfort zone. Risk-taking is what propels you forward and accelerates success. Each career step I have taken in my life has expanded my horizons, my networks, and has built me further. Invest in building strong relationships and networks. I always say, not when you need them, so that when you need them, they'll be most available to you. Keep a positive attitude. It breeds positive energy, and please surround yourself with positivity from your husband or wife, your bosses, your colleagues. Toxic relationships steal energy and they waste time. So seek to build positive relationships. Seek to exit or stay away from them if you can, or manage them better. TFS. I tell you this often, so I'm going to say it publicly. You're one of my greatest examples of someone who has a positive attitude. The sun is always shining for you. Other examples of friends of mine are Tony Lumelu, the founder of AiR Holding. Another example is the president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akin Adeshina. I have learned a lot from three of you about the importance of creating positive energy. Manage failure in a positive manner. I think it was Ms. Huntington who said, your failure is a stepping stone to success. I am more idealistic than her. I don't think that there's anything called failure per se. It's an opportunity for you to course correct and continue on this journey of life. Finally, I'd like to leave with you. Give, pay it forward. It's never too early to start giving to society. There's a lot that needs to be done. The world needs so much. You don't have to have wealth to be able to give. You can give of your services, of your person. And even giving financially, you can give of the little that you have. So those would be some of the things that have guided me through my life. Because at the end of the day, it is really about what is our legacy. And I'm still on that journey to make sure that I impact society.
Wow. Wow. I am not just impressed, I am inspired once again. And by the way, I love the company in which you have put me. I am truly honored to have my name mentioned alongside the names of two of the greatest men that Africa has ever produced, and who are both mentors and an inspiration to me as well.
Absolutely. I have been inspired. I've shared this with you, but it's great for me to share it publicly that, your positive attitude and the positive energy that you always create, people don't understand the value of that. It's something that has inspired me over the years. But now I want to ask you about the lessons from your own personal journey, because I do think, like you, that we must help younger people and also help younger women, particularly because of how difficult it is to rise to leadership positions. So it'd be lovely for you to also share your own personal journey.
Thank you. So I'm going to start with something you have mentioned already, which is that I am where I am today because I have been able to stand on the shoulders of some giants. You are one of those giants. And I thank you for the role you have played in bringing me up to where I am. So I will start with the quality of relationships that, God has helped me to cultivate and to protect over the years. I believe being purpose-driven is critical to success. And the faith that I have in God has helped me early enough to identify the purpose He has for my life, which has guided me up till now. So if I have advice for people, it is to say, have faith in God, and then have faith in yourself. And please don't quit until you get to where you believe God is taking you. And faith will breed resilience because the road will be rough. And I will not lie, I do not believe that I have had an easy road. I have been passed up for opportunities. I have, lost positions that were very important to me. And then I got back up. I think it's also important to have a track record of getting things done. And again, I will thank you for the opportunities that you gave me when you were Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission. You were my regulator and you needed to have things done within the industry. You gave me an opportunity to serve. I acquired skills and capability. And very importantly, I also acquired a reputation, and I built my CV and I acquired visibility, which leads me to the third thing that I want to say. I think anybody seeking to rise to leadership, especially the women, should be committed to building your personal brand. And when you build your personal brand, your organization sees your personal brand as an enhancement to its corporate brand. They will want to place you somewhere high. It's very, very important. So commitment to your personal brand is very important. Commitment to learning and development, which you have also mentioned. Learning and development is a long-term journey. Commitment to technology, innovation and technology is critical today. And the way you and I have embraced technology, including the multiple platforms on which we're having this program, keeps us relevant and keeps us on top of our game. So any woman that wants to be a leader and stay a leader must commit to innovation and technology. And of course, active participation in networks and professional groups is very important. And investment in self-education. Investment in self-education. Finally, integrity and credibility. You mentioned that I'm an entrepreneur. I'm happy to be an entrepreneur. It's because people believed that their funds were safe with me and their mandates were safe with me. I think I will stop there. Thank you, AIM, for the opportunity to explain these things.
Phenomenal. And for me, things very similar paths in terms of integrity. I liked your point about purpose and really anchoring it on your spiritual well-being and on God for those of us who believe in God. But I just want to say to you that, of course, I did come to you often to be part of the work that we had, the big agenda we had at the Securities and Exchange Commission, because every time I asked you, you were not just enthusiastic, but you delivered. You participated in some of the biggest agendas. I mean, one that I appreciate very much that the Securities and Exchange Commission Nigeria continues to reinforce is a capital market master plan up till 2025, which guides us in that journey of becoming a world-class market. So it's the other. So delivering is something that I like. But permit me, because I have a question for you. A big area for me that I've been focused on recently is on allyship, and I believe that in this journey of gender equality, of valuing everybody, that allyship of men, of women is extremely important. So I have a two-part question. One is really that I also know your husband, Mr. Sanni, very, very well. He's a C-suite finance executive. And I know for sure that he's your number one cheerleader, and that he is that secret ingredient to your success. So I want to hear about it, but I want to hear about allyship more generally. I see, the way that you work across the industry on the continent. You partner with male and female in this respect. I see that the event that you hosted on the 8th of March, that you had two amazing men, Andrew Nevin, the chief economist of PwC, and Mr. Nadele, the group CEO of FMDQ, who were part of that event to showcase that it's a partnership. The gender equality agenda is an agenda for society, is not a women agenda. So I want to hear you talk about allyship, but please, first of all, I want to hear you talk about that secret ingredient of success that you have, your husband.
Thank you. So let me start by agreeing with you completely that the ability to identify, to create, and then to protect and thereby maintain critical relationships is invaluable to my success journey and to anybody's success journey. So I am committed to allyship and partnership. On a personal note, as you have mentioned, my spouse is indeed, a secret ingredient to my success. And I will tell you to the extent that is, that when in the times in the past when either of us had a career interview, we would role play the interview to one another. So he would interview me, ask me all the questions he thinks I will be asked, and he would not leave until I was perfect. And I will do the same for him. So having somebody at home that you can role play the critical, engagements and tests that you're going to go through is one example. For example, I always had him in my corner. By the way, he's the one who studied economics, who is the economist. Today, I am frequently mistaken for an economist.
Well, if you spend over 30 years, you will be an economist.
Absolutely. So I'm an economist by marriage now. So this has been. I think the important thing is to know that we need to develop critical relationships we need to protect these relationships, and we need to maximize the value of these relationships, and we must be givers and not takers. And the more you give, the more you will eventually get. So I think I'll leave it like that, because I want to ask you a question before we run out of time. And the question I have for you is that I visited your massive office at the World Bank, and I could not but notice the very distinctive plaque within the boardroom that commemorated the award that was given to you for being a top 3 mentor across the entire World Bank Group. I mean, this was within a couple of years of joining that institution. How did you accomplish that? What do you have to say to would-be mentors and mentees? Thank you.
Absolutely. I do think that it's the issue around relationships and making sure that whether you're a mentor or a mentee, that you can bring valuable relationships, bring value to the other party. But I would like to defer answering the question more fully to later on in the time that we will have, because mentorship, sponsorship is extremely important, because I understand that our special guest of honor, Miss Amina Mohammed, has just joined us. And I would appreciate, because she stepped out of a meeting to join us, and she will be with us for only a few minutes. So we'll continue our conversation, TFS. But in the interest of time, I'd just like you all to join me in welcoming Ms. Amina Mohammed, the Deputy Secretary General, United Nations, and Chair of the United Nations Sustainable Development Program. And I really just want to say a big thank you, because I know that it is because of the relationship that we have had over the last 29 years that you made out time for us today. Everybody knows your background. So I'd just like to ask you that in your opening remarks, that you focus on 2 themes. And I'll explain the context for those 2 themes. Our last edition was focused on sustainability en route to COP26. You are one of the architects of Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. It will be very useful for the many participants. We have participants from 50 countries to hear you share with us your perspectives on the origin, the vision, and the progress that has been made globally on the Sustainable Development Goals. It will be great too, Madam DSG, if you can share your personal journey, because you've advised 3 Nigerian presidents on the Millennium Development Goals. You've been Minister of Environment. You're now the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, and Beyonce, who won the highest number of Grammys last night, has you as one of the few people that she admires in the world. So I'm sure that a lot of people want to hear how you build such a distinguished career that has impacted society. You and I have known each other for 29 years. So I hope you'll also share something about how do you remain energetic, enthusiastic? How do I feel just as equally loved as you when you have so many people that you share, that I share you with? You have 6 children, you have a granddaughter. I mean, how do you do it? So whatever you do, because I know you're going to rush off, these are my asks of you in your opening. And then if we have some time, TFS and I will ask you questions, and we've got a lot of questions that are already being asked, which we can also share with you. So please, Madam DSG, Deputy Secretary General, over to you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Arunma, my sister. And, you know, it's beyond excellencies and distinguished delegates. It's really, you know, women in arms, because that's what we are. And I think that our relationship over the years has been mutually reinforcing. I know that you've done so much to put more steel in my spine. And so I thank you for that. And these are the kind of meetings actually that energize us and give us more fuel, to enable us to get a little further. And many of us are very privileged to be in the positions that we are. And I hope that what we are able to do together, so individually in our drive to move women's issues forward, and of course a world that's more equal, that collectively we can leave the places that we arrived in better than when we got there. That's really the wish for all of us, I'm sure. So thank you for having me. I was listening to the last conversation and I was thinking, oh, this is a meeting that I want to stay in. But unfortunately, duty calls. Well, I mean, Arunma, the first question, of course, was the SDGs and Goal 5, our gender equality goal. I mean, we had a gender goal in the MDGs, and when we were shifting to the SDGs, there was a paradigm shift to say that, we really wanted to see all the aspirations, the targets, the metrics that we put in place for women over the decades actually see themselves mainstreamed in every single goal. And so it wasn't just add on by the way we tick the box for women. So when we started with our 4-year journey of consultations to try to get the SDGs, the one thing we were certain about was that SDG 5 would be. What we were not certain about is how much ambition we would give to it in setting the targets, which would really look to ensure that we eliminated violence and gender disparities and had equality at the center, and that we really did translate in the investments that we made in the SDGs the rights of women. So it was a journey that I saw as a goal that we absolutely no argument would be there. However, the additional challenge was, how did we make the gender goal be, as I would say, the docking station for all others? In other words, it would feed the 16 goals, whatever we were doing with women in the circular economy or in climate action or in strengthening institutions, we would see that the other half of our population was included. And that was more difficult in setting the targets and the metrics of the other goals. But in the same way that we also wanted to see that other goals would also look to see how they embedded the gender goal. So it's been a framing, which I think that, we've never had any disagreement of. I think the litmus test was COVID. We were already off track with the SDGs come the beginning of last year, and we had the decade of action to try to accelerate. But one of the things that it has shown us is that the framing for the response to COVID, particularly since we've seen the socioeconomic impacts, and that lands on the shoulders of women, has been the one thing that no one has disagreed with. And so we have a roadmap and we have work to do. Today is the first day of our CSW, the Commission on the Status of Women. And that's where I disappear to now. And still Goal 5 remains absolutely critical to that. I mean, Goal 5 is also women in leadership, but in decision-making roles at all levels. It's not just about the president or the prime minister. It's about the speaker. It's about the Senate president. It's about the head of households. It's about, the head of a business. It is everywhere you find yourself in a position of leadership that we really look to see what those decision-making roles are. In a cabinet, that we have the best portfolios, so that we are finance, we are health, we are education, and it's not just the Minister of Women's Affairs that we are getting. We want that as well, but we want other decision-making roles. So I think for Africa, it's going to be really important that we see ourselves in leadership from the community all the way through to the top. It is important that we see progress on these goals, because if we don't, we're not going to achieve the aspirations that we have for the SDGs in Africa, economic growth. Huge benefits, because our populations are over 70% young people. And so today what I really see is that the baton that we hand over is one that young people with the energy and the vision for the future will get equality right, that they will be about men and women. And that we will not be talking about either of the genders being left behind. So this is a really big moment for us to be mentors, to be as they say, the push behind the next generation to do this. How have I been able to manage? We're very faithful people, so we say by the grace of God. But I think much more realistically, my work, I've never really seen my work as work. It has been about what I've wanted to do from when I started in the private sector. We were managing projects that we designed in health and education and in public buildings. But then, we went one step further. I remember when we were working with the African Development Bank and we were looking for resources to finish a hospital. They were asking us as architects and engineers questions we had never thought about in the brief, which was the impact of our building in the communities and the societies. And that sort of brought me into this public space where, it was not about a box of drawings costing millions of dollars, but it was about how that actually played in people's lives. And so I very quickly became an employer. And I think that was because, for me, it was important to have a good work-life balance and that my children would come first, even though I wanted the career. And, in Africa, we are just blessed because we have such a strong fabric in our communities, in our societies, that helps us do this. I could never have done this if I was in the UK or the United States. So I would say that, for me, it's where I was coming from, and I was able to do this with my children. I was also able to be part of a company that we designed policies that helped me be a mother and a professional. And, small things like saying, okay, to my 4 colleagues at the board, we are making a policy that you travel with your wives. It was sort of like, oh, that's very generous of you, but not really, because I didn't want to travel with my husband. I wanted to travel with the nanny and the baby. So really just being creative, you've got to be creative. And, being an employer was very important for me because I wasn't under the stress of an employee in feeling guilty about, having time for my family and otherwise. So, yeah, it was that. In terms of a career, I think I've just gone for the issues that I want to change, and then found myself in a position where I've been asked to come and take it up. My first job in public office was when we sort of screamed in civil society that Nigeria did not have a national education plan, and government just said, stop making noise, come in and do it. It was a big decision because we quite like shouting as activists, but it was a turning point in, could you come into government and not be, and be faithful to the activism and to the issues that you fought for. And I think that we did. And that was because of what you had talked about just earlier, partnering. You have to keep the partnerships alive. And it's very difficult in public office, but you have to do that. You have to go to the meetings that everybody will say to you, in your position now, you shouldn't be going to that level. It's not your level. Hey, everything is your level. So far as there is a poor person to help, there's no level, up and down. You don't know where you are. It's by God's grace. So I think, serving actually 4 presidents has been a complete honor for me in my country. And to be able to do that, I think is because we pulled the thread through that it didn't matter which watch you were on, whether it was President Obasanjo or Shehu Yar'Adua, Umaru Yar'Adua, or President Goodluck or President Buhari. In every single one of them, none of them would argue that people didn't matter and that it was the poverty agenda and a gender agenda. So finding yourself with that thread that can pull through whatever the watch and making it non-partisan, because it is about people and it's about the rights of people in Nigeria.
TFS, I know that you're angling to ask some questions of Madam DSG. Absolutely phenomenal. By the way, I remember DSG. I don't know if you remember when we met. We met when you came to the African Development Bank with your colleagues, and so the story that you told about how you reviewed your work resonates with me very much. And thank you so much for these absolutely amazing thoughts you've shared with us. TFS.
Thank you so very much. And I'm truly honored to have the opportunity of this engagement with you, ma'am. And I would also very quickly mention when I met you, which was when you were championing Nigeria's first climate bond. And I mean, as Minister of Environment, there you were championing a financial initiative. And I remember the very first meeting in your ministry with a close-knit group of, and you did it. So thank you so much. And today, I'm sure if you followed the progress, you know that we have continued and we now have climate bonds, you know, even within, we have green bonds in the private sector space as well now. We just closed one last week.
By the way, she writes me WhatsApp at 3 a.m. in the morning asking me about green instruments. She came and spent time with us at the World Bank on green finance.
Thank you. So we closed a green bond just last week for North-South Power in Abuja. So we're continuing, you know, with what you laid down. So my question is, how, in your opinion, is Africa doing on the SDGs, and especially on SDG 5? What are the benefits to Africa of more progress on SDG 5? And what advice do you have for companies and individuals to help advance gender equality? I know it's quite a lot of questions into one, and we're sensitive to your time. So whatever you are able to respond to in that time will be fine, you know, honestly. There's a third part to the question, but I'm feeling too guilty. So I'm just
Not at all, Toyin. It's wonderful to see you. And you know, when I first joined the Ministry of Environment, my state and people there were not very happy. They you know said, "Oh my God, this woman is just the dustbin lady. What are we going to get out of environment?" But we brought, as women do, to the front burner the issues that matter for people and the economy. And I remember my colleagues in cabinet saying to me, "So what are you doing in the stock exchange?" And the Minister of Environment. I said, "I will show you what we're doing in the stock exchange." And you've continued to build on that, which means that we did leave, you know, better off, and people dared, which is what we have to do. And so when we talk about Africa and the SDGs, we're not doing as well as we should be doing. There have been improvements, certainly with education, with health. But where we're really seeing, lagging behind is our inclusion in the economies, the digital divide. But there is an opportunity right now to see more progress and to see the benefits of what I would say are the opportunities of post-COVID, because it sets us up right now. There's a lot more focus on what a stimulus package is going to contain, how responsive, inclusive, can we make it? How can we use the opportunity of transitioning to green, a just transition, because not all countries are at the same level. So connectivity, energy transitions, really basic infrastructure to make sure that our economies can grow and that the CFTA in Africa can actually take root. So there are a number of issues. But in all of these, we need to map where is the other half of the population in terms of their education, their skills, their access to finance, to enable them become an integral part of the growth of our economies. And I think that we need to do country by country. The Economic Commission for Africa, which is led by another amazing woman, Vera Shongwe, is also doing that, is factoring that in to see how we can make that better. My advice is that, there was a meeting that the African Union pulled together. It was ministers of health, and it was women. It's the largest number of women ministers of health in any region. And bringing them together and drawing on their experiences and helping them to have the toolkits that when they get to cabinet, they can shift the resources where they need to see it, be it women's responses to women's issues, or just basically improving health systems so that we are better prepared for the next pandemic. And I have to say that Africa was prepared for this pandemic as a health crisis. We were not as prepared in an economic crisis. So advice is for us to really get stuck into our stimulus packages to ensure that we are in those. The expenditures will have the implications in lives from communities all the way through. And that we push the global community for the response. Many talk about the recovery from COVID right now on the continent. We are not in recovery yet. The global response has not happened. There has not been a just and global response for vaccines. It is not a global public good. It is a few in rich countries Every single minute there is an injection, a vaccination being given, and yet there are many developing countries are yet to receive the first dose. So we need a global response that shows that we are that village that actually responds to one another because we're so interconnected, and that, you know, where there is COVID, we will not be able to deal with a brave new world and a recovery. So the quality of our response is going to define the recovery. It's not just got to be better, it's got to be different. We cannot continue to work in the same, you know, architecture that we have for debt relief or for finance. It's got to go beyond GDP. We've got to explain vulnerability in a different way, because in Africa, the shocks are being felt from, you know, actions that are taken elsewhere. And that means we have to begin to rethink the way that we grow our economies. But I'm very enthusiastic. I think there's a huge amount of energy. We are so much better off than we were before. We have great leaders outside of government. Within government, I think, you know, it's a time for governments to just move to that space where they are enabling and facilitating of a country, of a business, of you know, the people. And that we use our marketplace, you know, to really drive the energies and the aspirations of young people, whether they are entrepreneurs or otherwise. So I have a lot of, you know, I'm very optimistic about the future for Africa. It's tough, but, you know, it's doable. I think we just need to take charge. If it's about peace, it's in the communities. Don't wait for government to make peace for you. These conflicts are in our communities. They are not in the president's office. The president can facilitate. A president has an obligation to try to ensure all that is available to make peace in a country and give you security. But in the end, it is at that local level. And so we all have a role to play, particularly women, in ensuring that we have peace so that we can actually build our prosperous communities, countries. You know, we go for gold.
Wow, we go for gold.
Wow. First, you have to formally thank Madam DSG for us, because I committed to her office that we will have her join the Commission on the Status of Women event on the dot at the hour, and I've already failed. So why don't you just say thank you on our behalf? This has been phenomenal, but it's a conversation that we must continue. The chat box is on fire. People have a lot of comments and questions for you, but thank you, my sister, Amina, for the great work that you do for society. And thank you for whenever I call upon you, for always being there for me. TFS, on behalf of AiR.
So very formally, on behalf of the Africa Investment Roundtable and on behalf of the thousands of participants who have been so blessed, so inspired, and so challenged by your contributions this afternoon, I want to say a very big thank you to you, Madam DSG, and to say that we wish you all the best as you go on with your job of saving the world. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, my sisters. It's been a pleasure for me. To be continued. I am going to go through the chat box just to see what questions they are, because they often give me a lot of homework. You know, listening to others gets me further, because there are so many things that sometimes drop off our radar. But this has been a privilege, and it's always very exciting to be with the both of you. So thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, AIM. And I think this is the time when we kick off our Q&A with participants, and starting with the unveiling of the polls that have been running for a couple of days now. So we will be looking to see the outcome of the two polls, and thereafter we will take questions as our technical team help us to upload the questions from the LinkedIn, the YouTube, and the LinkedIn and the LinkedIn platforms. So We're just waiting to see the poll results, the questions.
I suspect that our head of production is planning to run the 1 minute video from from our platinum sponsor. I think she's trying to make sure that she gives people who haven't had the time to complete the poll to do so. As TFS said, it's on any platform that you are, there's a link. And for my Dream AiR team, please place the link so that people have them prominent. I'm very keen to hear what people have to say about where we are on the SDGs and where and who needs to play a more prominent role. From what I remember of the polls, have your say if you haven't already had it. So I know that our head of production is required to play the 1 minute video. So go ahead.
Right. As
FMDQ Group is the one-stop platform in Africa where you can efficiently commence and end all your financial markets transactions, from registration, listing, quotation, and trading of debt securities such as bonds, commercial papers, to risk management, central counterparty services, and securities settlement, as well as depository services. FMDQ Group empowers and provides corporates, individuals, and governments with an unrivaled access to a value chain of opportunities to raise their corporate profiles in the Nigerian financial market. FMDQ Group, through FMDQ Private Markets, provides an organized platform to promote inclusion of private companies in the capital markets. We are Africa's first vertically integrated financial market infrastructure group. At FMDQ Group, our agenda is to make the Nigerian financial markets globally competitive, operationally excellent, liquid, and diverse. For more information on how we create value for you, visit www.fmdqgroup.com and follow us on our social media handles at FMDQ Group.
So I guess we're now going to have the polls, TFS. Thank you very much to FMDQ for the support that you've given us over the last 3 months as a platinum sponsor. TFS, should I go ahead or you go ahead? You go ahead.
You go. Okay.
I like the second one better, so you go ahead. Okay, I'll go. It's fine. So the question that we had for the first poll is, which of the following would you, in your opinion, produce the most impact in terms of advancing the African continent towards gender equality? And the options, if our team can present the options. Okay. Oh, they were actually reversed. So this is the question that I like. So is it more female participation in politics? Is it more access to finance for female entrepreneurs? Is it more female leaders in the private sector? Is it more men sponsoring, mentoring, and advocating for women? There was one that I thought that I had, at least the one I completed, also had all the above.
Yeah, that's the one at the top.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Oh, wow. Okay. So
that's the winner.
This is that's the winner. Because I think all the above are important. But TFS, maybe you can share some perspectives on the others, the ranking that you see in terms of the other 4.
Okay, thank you. So I think I should start by actually commending our research team in coming up with these options, because in a way they gave us an opportunity to discuss the critical building blocks that we need to accelerate gender equality. And so starting with that, we need men as sponsors and mentors and advocates for women is so important. And we have identified today, you mentioned the point earlier, it's no longer a women's conversation. It's a global conversation for men and women alike. We also need more female leaders because people want to see somebody like them in these positions, and it is very powerful because then you are inspired. So more female leaders in the private sector, more female leaders in politics and government, and more access to finance. And I must admit that I also agree that we need all of these. But I like the fact that after all of the above, politics and government comes first, because you made that point earlier that it has to start with policy.
I agree, and I want to thank all of those who shared their perspectives with us, because I think that one other area is really a common understanding of the importance of this agenda, and the amazing response that we got when following the launching of this poll, in terms of those who have participated across various platforms, speaks to the fact that everybody understands the value of this agenda. Can our team then share with us a second poll? And TFS, please go ahead. That's the one I had given to you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. I also forgot to highlight the point about access to finance for female entrepreneurs. That came next, I think, after the politics and government. So great. Our second question was reviewing SDG 5, which is to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. How close to this goal do you think we are at as a continent? Very exciting. Oh, so the options started from 5%, below 5%, thereabout, 5% achieved. Yes, it started from below 5%, we're just starting out, then 5% achieved, to 10% achieved, to 25% achieved, to 50% achieved. And the answers actually are at 25%. So 43% of the responders think that we're a quarter of the way to that, on that journey. What do you think, AIM?
I think that that's a reasonable response, because as you highlighted, the political will, the policy is extremely important, and we're seeing some really great examples. I mean, Rwanda is really just up there for the entire world to see. We've also talked about giving access, equal access to women. If men and women have equal access on technology, capital, and land, we can add, we can feed another 150 million people. So that there's just various initiatives, but 25% is not a grade that any of our parents would be happy with. So it also shows that we have a lot of work for us to do. And so I like the fact that people kind of sense that there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. And the benefits are enormous. I said it at the beginning, in terms of the economic importance, the value of everybody participating, whether for private sector or for public sector.
You're so correct. And on that note, I think we should go straight into the Q&A. So we can expect the first question to show up now. Yes. So our first question is from Modukpe Famakinwa, and she has asked, how can we bridge the gap between the green finance available to Africa and the stage of industrialization here? How can we focus investors on the likes of SDG 5 to be funded beside the popular goals 7 and 13? And that question is for a global leader like Miss Arunma Oteh.
TFS, it's an absolutely phenomenal question. And one of the advantages that we have as Africa is that people, the fact that we haven't dealt with some things means that we can do green at the same time, so we can leapfrog. So we've got the African Development Bank suggests that we need to spend about $130 billion at least a year on infrastructure in Africa. That is an opportunity to green at the same time. That is an opportunity to make sure that women are involved in infrastructure. I know, for example, from our conversations, some of the support that you're giving state governments in Nigeria in their infrastructure agenda. So we can green, we can leverage women, and we can build infrastructure at the same time. So we have, in a sense, an opportunity that others don't have. Goal 7 is affordable energy. Affordable and clean energy. Africa is energy poor. We had the Vice President of Energy from the African Development Bank talk about this and how we must have a just transition. So it's really the confluence of Goal 5, Goal 7, Goal 13. And Madam DSG made the point that the anchor for all of the goals, the 17 of them, if you include SDG 5, is actually the gender agenda. So we have a real opportunity in Africa.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for doing justice to that question. So I think we should take the next question now.
While we're waiting for the next question, TFS, remember the question you asked me
Exactly.
about mentorship and mentors. It's such an important question. So permit me, while we're waiting for the research team to share with us their next question, that I give you a fuller answer. As I said, the entire world of mentors, sponsors, bosses are those who have helped me in my journey of life to make my own difference. And therefore, for me, mentorship is absolutely essential. I find as a mentor that it is rewarding. What I find that makes mentorship successful, both for the mentor and the mentee, is first of all that both the mentor and the mentee understand that there's value in the relationship. I mean, I have people who on any of the social media handles say, "Oh, be my mentor," and I'm thinking, well, you're giving me credit for free because there's not very much I can offer you. To set a proper agenda for mentorship, where you kind of understand what is the value that the mentor brings, what is the value that the mentee brings. Because in my own experience, I have benefited very much from all the mentees that I have. I mean, Chinwe Gwim, research economist, has been my mentee for many years. Work on things together, have agreed upon periodic touch-based sessions with each other, but also be available when there's an important ask. And if you're a mentee, when you have something that's burning, ask. Today we have all forms of, you can write an email, you can, do a WhatsApp. There are many ways. One of the things that I see that's happening is, and TFS, you do that, is to have scale in terms of how you mentor, because there's a lot that's being asked of people like you and I. That's why you formed the Nigerian Women in Finance organization. That's why we do a number of things together as a way to be able to give more to many more people. I see the second question has just come on. The second question is from Grace Oluchi. It's about women entrepreneurs. And so TFS, that's yours. What do you think is the role of women entrepreneurs in bridging the access to finance gender gap in Africa?
Excellent question. Thank you very much, Grace. So the first role that I think that women entrepreneurs have is to do their homework and make sure that the business has proper governance. They utilize the little funding that they have in a transparent and in a profitable way, and that they also brand their organizations and themselves in such a way that they are more likely to attract funding. So position yourself for funding through branding, through governance and transparency, and through running a good business. Secondly, I think that there's a role for female entrepreneurs like me who are with a finance background to also set up institutions and provide products and funding access essentially to other female entrepreneurs. I think female entrepreneurs also have a responsibility to use the funding that they eventually get, to use it so well that others will be encouraged to fund more female entrepreneurs. So we have to set an example. I will stop there because I think AIM also has some points to add.
I think that the points you've made, TFS, are right on the money. I would just simply add that we need a broader ecosystem. Globally, you add another $5 trillion if you're providing women finance. That's what BCG came up with in their research. And Africa basically needs to focus more on its entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs are the ones that create jobs, men and women alike. And what we need is to have the kind of things that you have in many countries, which is an ecosystem that starts with venture capital and goes all the way to public, whether public debt or public equities. There's still a lot of focus. There's a dichotomy where, the angels who help you, even some of the venture capital entities that are helping with a number of some of our startups are coming from outside of the continent. We recently heard about Flutterwave. We'd heard about Paystack. A lot of those investments came from outside of Africa. So we need to also put our money where our mouth is. We need to help women entrepreneurs, particularly, scale their businesses. We're seeing a missing middle. We're not seeing businesses transition. And so some of the other challenges, property rights, land issues, business support services are also areas that can support women. So that's what I would add, TFS, to what you shared with us.
Thank you, AIM. Very important. We can also add that the female entrepreneurs need to get themselves organized into groups and networks that can attract funding in a more structured way, and where they can share experiences and build one another up. So I think all we have left are just comments and feedback, and our time is up. On that note, I would like to start by thanking our wonderful guest, who was worth every second that we spent with her. That is Madam Amina Jane Mohammed, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations. We thank you so very much, Madam, for joining us today. We thank her team for the support that they gave her. We appreciate the sacrifice, knowing exactly the pressure on her time. We thank you, my dear friend, sister, mentor, co-founder, Ms. Arunma Oteh, for sharing your wealth of experience with us. It's been an incredible conversation with you today. I look forward to many more sessions of AiR with you. I want to thank our team that have been amazing, the amazing AiR team, the production team, the media team, the research team led by our resident economist, Chinwe, who also introduced this program today. And very importantly, very, very importantly, our sponsors who are listed, and media partners who are listed and have been recognized. I think I should mention the names again. So platinum sponsor for Q1 was FMDQ Group. Thank you very much. Emerging Africa Group for your sponsorship. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Our media partners, Business Day, The Guardian, and Africa magazine, Africa Business Magazine. Thank you very, very much. Now we would like to thank all the participants. You guys are simply amazing across the multiple platforms. You've been with us, lighting up the chat boxes with your comments, actively participating. And one of the things that touches me is that many times it's not just a one-line comment. Thank you, Ononuju Iruku. She's chairperson of Women in Finance Nigeria UK. Thank you. So just a lot of love that we're getting from participating. Our participants. Thank you for joining us. Last thing I would like to say is that we will take a 1-month break and resume AiR in May. And we are going to have the next AiR on May 17, and we're going to be discussing financial inclusion, which goes to a lot of the questions we've been hearing. What do we do for female entrepreneurs? How do we get funding to the critical sectors of society? Please don't fail to join us. We will have some amazing partners, exploring all the aspects of this very important topic. Thank you again, and I think it's a wrap. God bless you. Have a wonderful rest of the week.
Thank you.